All right, today we're going to take a look at the activity in Google Classroom entitled Writing Hooks. We're going to be looking specifically at writing hooks for your essay, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. So if everybody will pull up this particular document and we'll go ahead and get started. For this assignment, every student needs to complete 3 writing hooks for your individual prompt. So in this last column here, you get to scroll through and decide which one of these types of writing hooks you would like to go ahead and write. Again, you only have to do 3, and the document extends down to quite a few, so you get to decide. What I want to do is just take an opportunity to go through creating some writing hooks for my model prompt so you can kind of see how this works. So I'm going to start, first of all, with a question writing hook, and I'm going to go ahead and pull up a PowerPoint presentation, but you guys can go ahead and follow along on the actual document. So the prompt that I'm going to be working with is discuss a motif in The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, and the thesis that I've written is, in The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, the main character Huck Finn has to lie often to protect himself and others that he cares about. So I want to start thinking about how I can start my paper. I tend to write several writing hooks and then go back and see which one I like best, which one matches up with what I've really said in my paper. So I'm going to start with beginning with a question. If you were going to write a writing hook that is a question, typically, and I'm just reading along on the screen, it says the first sentence of the paper is actually a question. The question should be a thought-provoking question that relates to the topic of the prompt, but the question should not be the actual question or problem that was asked in the prompt itself. So the sentences after the first question can be a continuation of the ideas addressed in the first question or even an answer to the question. So I'm going to go back to this document and just kind of explore writing a question writing hook for my model prompt. So as I thought about this, I'm going to be writing about lines. So I thought definitely I'm going to ask some type of question about lines. So maybe something like, when does lying, or maybe at what point does a little white lie change into something harmful? And I'm going to continue that. A little white lie, so now I'm just kind of giving a little background about that. A little white lie is often told to protect someone's feelings, or maybe even to cover up a small bad deed. However, white lies can quickly change into something bad or harmful. So again, right now I'm just thinking about something I could say. And this may or may not fit with my thesis as I have it written. I would go back and just kind of change it around if I need to. But again, this is kind of brainstorming for me. Eric, do you have a question? What is your question, Eric? You do not need to be typing what I am typing right now. However, if you want to fill this in so you can kind of look at it as a note sheet, you can do that. But you do not have to record what I'm recording on the screen. Excellent question. All right. Now I want to move on to the next type of writing hook, which is going to be the definition. And I think that lots of people, almost every one of you guys, are probably very comfortable with the definition writing hook. In a definition writing hook, you define a word that relates to the topic of the prompt. Often writers will pick the most important word or phrase in the prompt to define. This is acceptable, but a writer can also choose to define a word that's related. So I'm writing my paper about lying, right? And so the obvious choice would be to define what a lie is. But I wanted to do something a little bit different. So what I'm going to do is I think that I am going to define moral corruption. Because in my paper, I'm going to be talking about whether or not Huck Finn was actually corrupt when he lied, or whether or not it was justified. So I actually went to Google and I typed in, trying to find out what is moral corruption, and I found a definition of that. And I'm just going to kind of change it around to suit my purpose here. So I might begin this paper with, to be morally corrupted means to not care about or recognize general accepted social norms. And I'm going to continue this thought. Someone who is morally corrupt will do or even say anything to anyone. Many people, so again, I'm just brainstorming here, many people question whether a person is morally corrupt if they are a compulsive liar. And so see, now I'm starting to move down into a little bit more specific topic, and I'm going to talk about Huck Finn maybe as a compulsive liar. Okay. So again, I'm just brainstorming some just ideas and things. And I might even have something on here I might eventually use in my body paragraphs. You never know. Okay. Now, the next writing hook I want to talk about is the scene. And so I want to make sure as I talk about that, I kind of point something out. Over the last couple of days of class, I've been encouraging you guys to not say anything about the book or the novel or the main characters before you get to the connecting sentence. However, if you decide to use the scene as a writing hook, you might actually use a scene from the book, okay? But you don't necessarily have to, but you can. So I am going to do that for this video's purpose. I'm actually going to think about a scene in which, Huck Finn lies, and then somehow to try to include that in. So I just happen to have an idea. Okay, in The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. So I want to make sure if I'm going to talk about a scene from the book, I give the title of the book. Notice that I've italicized the title of the book. You have to do that. All right, so in The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, the main character, Huck Finn, seems to be a compulsive liar. He lies to Widow Douglas about going to school. He lies to Judge Thatcher about why he wants to get rid of his fortune. In fact, he will lie to just about anybody. Now, I was very careful to not include any of the scenes that I'm necessarily going to use in my body paragraphs. I just want to kind of set him up as a compulsive liar. So I mentioned a few other scenes, but not the ones I want to use to support that he had to lie, and that line in this case was good. So these are one of those you have to really think that out to make sure that you don't contradict anything else that you say in your paper. Now, as we move down this document, you'll see that definitely there are other types of writing hooks that you can use. You can use figurative language. You can begin your paper with a simile or a metaphor in which you compare something. And in my case, I could compare Huck Finn to something else. Does anybody have any suggestions? What could I compare Huck Finn to? Can you think of any animal or fictional character or anything that is typically associated with being untruthful or lying? Okay, a snake or a fox, both good. So I could compare Huck Finn and say, Huck Finn, or I would maybe have to say the main character in, and I'm italicizing the title of the book, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. Huck Finn is a fox. He is sly and cunning and often tries to get away with things. However, he really is like most 14-year-old boys. Okay. Now, another writing hook would be to maybe talk about advice. And you know what I did? I actually went to Google and I typed in like quotes about lying. And I found this quote about lying by Mark Twain, which I thought, oh, it would be really great if I could work this somehow into my paper. Mark Twain said, if you tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything. So I thought it'd be really neat to start out this paper with this advice from the author of this book, talking about how that's his recommendation, but maybe then how ironic it is that he has his main character always lying in the book. Okay, so I could actually use that as an advice writing hook, or maybe even a quotation writing hook. Okay, now something I want to point out about that is if you do that, when you use a quote from someone, and I don't know if you guys remember this, hopefully you do, but you have to give credit to the quote in the sentence. So, right, famous author Mark Twain once said, if you tell the truth about, I got to look again, make sure I got it. See, if you tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything. So I kind of like that. And again, I could use that maybe beginning an advice writing hook, or maybe even a quote. Now I'm going to stop here. There are other styles of writing hooks that you could go through, predicting the future. Like I could predict if Huckleberry Finn were actually to turn into an honest boy, what would his life be like? And maybe kind of break that down and then transition back to, you know, when he gets older, maybe he can be a truthful young man, but when he's younger, he has to lie to protect himself and other people. So that would tie in really well. All right, so does anybody have any questions about writing hooks? Can I do what? A dilemma. Can I do a dilemma? Sure. All right. So a dilemma writing hook is when you begin stating a problem that people are dealing with. Well, in my case, an obvious problem would be, you know, is it okay to lie? Right? People struggle with this all the time. And so, you know, this is kind of a mixture maybe of a question and a problem, okay? If a lie is told to help someone, it is normally considered okay. But I'm going to continue talking about the problem. But if this same lie could hurt someone, does this make it not okay? So really just talking about a problem that maybe my character struggle with or people in general struggle with that relates to the topic of my paper. All right. So that's a great question. Anybody else have any other questions? All right.